and we'll try to handle your questions now. We don't have the wireless mic working, unfortunately, and the one mic that we have is right up here, but let's see what we can do for you. Speak loudly. Yes, sir. Or ma'am, I'm sorry.
Why was the Pike Construction Company, why did they pull out?
The conditions of the soil that they were working in. They wanted to change the method to remove the soil and to build the basin. And obviously put through a change order. As a result of that request with the city says, no, we believe what we're doing is right. All right? And we're not going to change that, and we're not going to pay you more money for it. But we're not going to hassle you over it as long as you don't hassle us over it. And anybody who works for the city, any vendor that works for the city, they don't like to hassle them at all. It's the same thing that I speak about. The city, by creating that kind of an environment, guess what? No vendor is going to take the city on in regards to an issue, any issue, whether they're right or not.
Have they found another company?
Oh yes, Crane Hogan is doing the work. Crane Hogan is the same company that did the O'Rourke Bridge. They were the winning bid, and I believe, if I remember right, David was around 10 million eight. All right, right around 10 million eight. All set? Yes, ma'am. Blue.
If they knew that it was wrong, Crane, why were they allowed to continue in this venue?
If I get it right, the question is, if Crane knew that Pike was having a problem, why did they take on the project?
Yes.
I run my own business. I have a lot of ego in regards to how I should run my business. I talked to a few of these contractors, and they have the same egos. Pike couldn't do it. I know how to do it. I've got all this experience in regards to doing it. Now you got to remember, Crane Hogan built the O'Rourke Bridge. They fixed the problem over there, I'm sure with the state and county engineers. All right, so they believe probably that they can do the same thing here. With the green and brown jacket, yes.
Will it cost more? No, they're going to do the same thing they did with the bridge.
Oh, there's definitely more money involved because they had to settle with Pike and then go on with Crane Hogan. Now, one of the things that I had mentioned, or that was covered in the original Time Warner report, was that Mark Rager said there probably would not be any environmental issues. Now, I know for a fact, because I actually traveled and, whoops, a little bit too much wind here. I actually followed one of the trucks all the way out to the Mill Seat landfill. Every truck coming out of there right now is going to Mill Seat landfill for one reason. The soil being taken out of there is contaminated. It's an additional cost. If they could have taken it down and maybe filled in the inner loop, that would have been a much cheaper method to go. And it's more costly in a lot of ways. Out to the Mill Seat landfill one way is 36 miles. So it's 72 miles round trip. They got a half an hour in the landfill and so on. So they're averaging something like an hour and a half a trip. And there's one truck right after the other. I was watching how many left here when I was with Channel 13 today. Next question. Yes, sir. Well, it's a variety of things. It's got to do with the slag. It has to do with all the water that was in there, mixing with the slag and the other hard metals. All right, and that's how it became contaminated. Supposedly, I think when the train accident was down there, they did a lot of removal of soil then too, but I don't think that was related to this. All right, but it's been there. It's been there for probably almost 100 years. I believe the ore mill goes back to around 1910 or something like that.
Slag is awful corrosive too.
Yes, yes, exactly, and that's one of the big problems that they're going to have with their foundation. There's still slag in there, and the water will transmit the corrosiveness of that slag to the foundations. So they have to protect the foundations, another additional cost. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. My name is Kate Zeller. I have been a resident of Charlotte. Presently, I have a little tiny place on the other side of the river. I've been around here for a long time. I want to know how it is that the developer, Edgemere, is that
It's actually Edgewater Resources is the lead.
Edgewater Resources. How do they get the right to purchase 2.8 of our publicly owned waterfront land for what looks like a minimal amount of money?
City Council did not feel the pressure from you and I. They would not have gone forward. I mean, the night of the vote, I was there talking against the idea myself.
How are we supposed to know about it if it wasn't noted publicly on TV or on the...
City Council is not going to tell you any more than they have to. Their answer, all right, would be that, well, we post the schedule of every one of our meetings online.
Well, they do probably get posted, but they need to be more
On an issue,
openly advertised in the newspaper and television.
You need to address that.
sure,
with
on an issue like this, you're not kidding.
Carla Palumbo. You need to address that with Carla Palumbo.
Right, Carla Palumbo is what Mike was saying. That's our representative locally.
She introduced the legislation, she forwarded it via her committee, and she voted yes.
Okay, this gentleman. Foreign investors. Remember, I was trying to stay out of the financing end of it, but one of the ladies associated with Charlotte Strong sent me an article from, I believe it was New York Times. Sue, was that New York Times? For the EB5?
Are you asking me? Oh, yes, that's one article.
That's okay. New York Times had a great article. It says, want a green card? Invest in real estate. That's what EB5 is all about. EB5 is a federal grant that will be provided to anyone who's willing from outside the country to invest $500,000 or more, and at the same time invested in real estate such that there's at least 10 jobs. Now, just about every project that I know of that's of any size has 10 people working there to build it. All right, so that's the easy part. If they come up with $500,000, what does that give them? It gives them a quick route to getting a green card, which normally takes, I believe, around 6 years, cuts it down to about 3, maybe even less than that. Great article in the New York Times. I'm going to try to get that online too.
Currently on the Edgewater website, they talk about financing for this project and that they are still seeking EB5 funding for the project. It's on their website today.
Now, the interesting other point about EB5, last year, and there's a limit, there's a quota in terms of number of funds that are available, or a number of probably EB5 apps that will go through. Last year, it took them till August to use up all those that quota. I believe it's this year. It went to May, that's it. So it's big business. There's one, matter of fact, one construction project down in New York City area somewhere where 1,800 people jumped on the bandwagon to help finance this particular project. They're not interested in return on the investment in the real estate. They're interested in getting the rest of their family over here and with a green card so they can go to get an education. Without a green card, you can't even start there. So, yes, sir.
I have a question for the doctor based on having lived in Boston when they put the John Hancock up on Copley Square, and then the library and especially the church, which abutted Copley Square, started having foundational problems because, of course, that's Back Bay, and I'm wondering whether there's an analogy to some of the liquefaction or whatever the technical term is here that you
right.
out here.
Right, the question about the Boston area and bad foundation conditions. Well, it's true all along the East Coast. Just like Lake Ontario was 465 feet lower, the oceans were 300 feet lower. So all the coastal areas on the East Coast, sea level has risen 300 feet, and it's put that same kind of sediment in all the areas like Boston would be like that. So the same kind of situation, and of course if you're in an earthquake area, then it's... And there's one question here about remembering earthquakes in this area. Do we have any possibility of future earthquakes? Well, we do, and a lot of them are up in Canada and the Adirondacks. Most people don't know there are about 30 fault lines underneath the city of Rochester. Of course, they're not active faults, but we found them when we did the tunnel work for the CISO project for the sewer tunnels in Rochester. In the 1980s and 90s, they found at least 30 faults that nobody knew about under the city. And, you know, we don't expect those to move, but there is the famous Clarendon-Linden fault between here and Buffalo, which is a relatively active fault zone. And actually, this part of the U.S. is classified as fairly high seismic risk, even though it's nothing like California.
Bill? I just want to
Suzanne, go ahead.
I just want to clear something up to make sure everyone understands. When Bill gave the estimate about $40 million more that their work bridge cost, Crane Hogan's original bid was for $63 million. That extra $40 million that it cost, we paid for. And just like with anything now that's out of the ordinary, down at the Marina, Crane Hogan is going to be right there with all kinds of extra work orders. Doesn't matter how many millions and millions, and they have a habit of, if they don't get the money from the municipality, they sue. They've got a lawsuit going right now with the state of New York. So anything extra over whatever they bid to complete that job that they run, we're going to be paying for it.
Now I'll get to some more questions in a second. I want to add a little bit to that, because one of the things that I've been able to do with talking with so many different people is to understand what the noise is behind a lot of this. And Suzanne is very correct. As a matter of fact, I looked it up, and yes, they're suing the state of New York in regards to change orders they put through and so on. And they've gotten in a few other hassles as well down in Binghamton. They still know how to construct things well. The city of Rochester, at the bidders conference, said make sure you know what you're bidding on. Make sure your bid is correct. Because if it's not, you're going to pay for the difference. We're not. So knowing Crane Hogan and knowing where the city says they are, all right, it should be interesting when some issues come up. And there's going to be, probably especially when they try to open up that basin to the river area. Because they're trying to put, the city of Rochester wants basically a 2-foot stone barrier between the basin and the river. And the basin is going to be 5 to 10 feet higher. The bottom of the basin is 5 to 10 feet higher than the river. So the river's going to work on eroding the soil underneath that 2 feet of stone in this case. Okay, next question. Yes, Sue.
Can't hear you.
I'll repeat the question. All right. There's a document called an EMP, Environmental Management Plan, that was issued for the first bit of construction for the Marina. It was then reissued and re-released to all the bidders on this contract. It has in there specifications for what they'll allow. All right. It's less than 1 inch per 25 feet of depth or something like that they'll allow. What happens if they notice that much of movement? And they're supposed to have sensors in there. They recommended that they have these sensors between any gaps in the land down there, especially around the terminal area. They're supposed to immediately stop all construction activity that day, that second, and get a hold of the project manager. That's what's supposed to happen. Yes, sir.
Another question on the environmentals. Who's responsible, or what kind of insurance policy is the city going to have as a seller for any environmental stuff that comes up? Who's going to be responsible for that?
Who's going to be responsible for the environmental cleanup issues?
Yeah, let's say there's an environmental cleanup operation that opposes keeping up the construction started. You know, basically, who's responsible for that cost?
Well, the city's made it pretty clear. Any disposal problems that they have, especially regulated waste, they're paying for. They've got it in the bidders conference. Yeah, Tony.
What are the toxic chemicals that are there?
Well, it's got to do with the slag. All right, the corrosives, phosphor, and the whole variety. You know, it's a whole slew of chemical products that are in there as a result of that construction. So there's more or less depending on where you are on the site. Gentleman back there, yes.
You're saying that the contract, if there's any environmental cleanup, the 20 million doesn't include the environmental cleanup. That would be additional to the 20.
That's right. City will take care of anything outside that.
And secondly, is the current contract a fixed bid contract, period, or is it subject to change order?
If you talk to people at the City of Rochester, or if you were at the bidders conference, you would walk away believing that this is a fixed bid contract.
But is that in the contract?
Excuse me?
Is it in the contract?
That I don't know. Yeah, Alex.
Hi, I'm Alex White, and I wanted to, you started out by saying there were no city council members here today, but there is a county ledge person here who represents many people in this area. Tony Michike. And if you're worried about city council not listening to you, there will be a choice. I'd like to announce today that I'm going to run for city council against Adam McFadden. Unfortunately, most of you will not get the vote for me. But if you'd like to donate money, I'd love that.
Typical politician, huh?
No, I got one more thing.
Sure, Alex, go ahead.
We do have someone who is going to run in this district, and it will be, her name is Dorothy Page. She's going to be running in this district against Molly Clifford. And unlike Molly, she is opposed to this project, will vote against this project, and is more willing to listen to the public than any of the present city council members. So please, there are representatives who are out there. You can help them out in many ways. And if you had been to council any time, it's hard not to be disgusted with the people up there at the moment.
What party line?
Hold on, guys. Hold on there. All right, Alex.
I'm going to be running on the Green Party line, and Dorothy will be running on the Green Party line. It'll be line D. Please make sure you look down far enough. This is a serious party. We're running serious candidates, and we want to represent people rather than the big business interests, which this project represents. Thank you.
All right. He snuck in a commercial on me. I'm sorry about that. But we need to know who the candidates are too. And
he's also been a very strong advocate for our cause.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
I have a question, Bill. Am I understanding correctly that liquefaction and probably quicksand are the same thing, or could be? And if we have a contamination problem, are we looking at corrosive quicksand or corrosive liquefaction?
Quicksand and liquefaction are related. Liquefaction is due to a spontaneous force that just shakes the ground like Jell-O pudding or something. But quicksand is where you have very slow movement of water up through the sand continuously all the time. So when you step on the sand, there's nothing to support you and you sink into it. So they're similar but not exactly the same.
What about the corrosiveness of the materials that they're taking out from the slag?
Right.
That I'm sure if we run into that problem is going to show up. That would put the corrosiveness right on our doorsteps then.
Right, but I would assume that in most cases they're required to remove all that stuff. So that's what's going on at this point. And it's probably less than 20 feet thick in most places on the site, but it's highly variable.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That blast furnace or the steel making or whatever was down in there in the recent past, wouldn't that have been a heavy structure with a lot of vibration?
If you look at the maps in regards to where that structure was, it is very close to Lake Avenue. So it's very close to the edge of the gorge. It's probably not as heavy as a 10-story building may be, because you've got a lot more concrete, right, in a 10-story building. Okay? Yes, George.
Right, so we're basically into a phase 3 environmental situation right now. Who's monitoring to ascertain that the phase 3 is totally completed, that there is no more contamination before they open that up and have contamination flowing out into the lake. And if it flows out into the lake, what is the Corps of our engineers?
That's a good question in regards to what the Corps of Engineers are. In order for them to get this project going, they involved a lot of different agencies, including the DEC. DEC closed the chapter on the CSX train accident quite a few years ago. And there were some things that I saw in the documents that says, well, if you leave everything undisturbed, we're not going to open it up again. But I'm sure there are DEC people that are also watching this project. The city, if there's anything I came away with in regards to the bidder conference, the city is extremely nervous about any contamination leaving the site in an uncontrolled manner. Right now, if you see those large tanks that are down there along the Port of Rochester building, the blue tanks, they're actually doing some filtering of all the water before the water goes back into the river. Okay. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Jim DiPaolo, a resident. Question concerning the bidding process. Crane Hogan is now doing the Marina, am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Crane Hogan's doing the Marina.
I'm sorry, all of the other phases of this will be individually bid, and like this project, Crane Hogan or whomever will have a chance to bid on them, I'm assuming, correct?
No.
No?
No.
Edgewater has exclusive right to build this development.
Okay, so once...
That's what we've been trying to get across for 1 year now. They have an exclusive right to, not only have they gained exclusive right to purchase the first parcel, but they alone own parcels 2 and 3 unless they don't want to do it. City Council gave them that right in December.
So actually, what you're saying then is that there is no option relative to phase 2 and 3.
In regards to the building, you're correct. There's no option for a different contractor to control the situation.
Well,
yes.
my question then is, if we run into the liquefaction problem, and you won't know that obviously until something goes wrong, if we ran into that problem, who's going to pay in the contracting of this? Is there going to be a codicil to the effect that Edgewater is going to pick up the dollars and cents, or are we going to get stuck for this extra dollar?
Again, okay, if you recall the piece that Time Warner did, you got Mr. Greger saying it's the developer's responsibility for all costs to develop the land. All right, but there's the what ifs. Remember I said environment. If you the worst enemy to anybody who's trying to build any kind of a system at all, whether it's a building, a park, a computer program, is the unknown, the environmental unknowns. And especially when you're really not paying attention to the environmental unknowns. Hold that up if you could. Thank you.
One other thing just before I leave.
Sure.
Just to let you, we live on Lake Avenue. We're at the southern end of Charlotte. We're towards the cemeteries.
Okay.
And just so that you understand, maybe the people here can see it in their own homes. We've lived here for 36 years now, and we've watched Lake Avenue be rebuilt because it's part of the federal highway system. And I mean rebuilt 3 times since we've been here. They rip it up, they put in all new utilities, they put in all new roads, and then they keep telling us that this time they'll get it right because every truck, every bus, every car that goes by, our house vibrates.
Okay.
Now, if it happens down at that end of Charlotte, what in God's name is going to happen down at this end of Charlotte, where we're sitting on a bunch of mush?
Exactly. That's the message we've been trying to get out. It's a serious unknown that the city just does not respect. Yes, ma'am, down and back there.
Who owns the Marina?
City of Rochester will own the Marina now. It owns it now. It will own it when they're done. It's going to be considered to be public property. They've got a planned walkway all the way around the marina that we should have access to no matter what. That's what they're saying right now, no question.
But they have promised slips to this development. So individual slips are promised to owners of the condominium in the development. That was in the RFQ.
That's correct, yes. No. Well, no, there will be slips both for the public and also for the buildings. Is that what it was? I'm not sure, but yeah, there is a division of that. You're all set? Yes, sir.
I have a question. When the environmental stuff started coming as far as the water and contamination, they were pumping water down into the river there for about a week, 24 hours a day. And what I was curious about is why were they pumping water in as well as getting water out if the environmental issue was going on? My question is, did they basically pump fresh water in and then pump water out and do their contamination testing upon
No, clarify that for me. You saw a pump, and they were pumping water out of the basin area directly into the river?
Directly into the river. And then they were filling up, then they were pumping water in the second round, and then they were pumping water back out again. And my question is, why would they be running a pump in and out? And then I had a question about that, and I did see an environmental truck there afterwards. My question is, did they do something, you know, basically to get their test levels where they want them to be, get the project started, and then say, okay.
I don't know the answer to that. All right. Crane Hogan did get into big trouble once before down in Binghamton in regards to pumping water into Susquehanna down there.
Well, I do know a lot of history about it, and what the funny part is that why would they pay so much overtime to have people working 24 hours a day at night during this situation, and then everything mysteriously disappears, and then all of a sudden there's environmental services there doing their testing. And that's the question that I have asked. And
I don't know the answer.
Before I knew about the change, I saw all this going on, and all of a sudden there's an issue.
Yeah.
What was the time frame on that? Do you remember?
Time frame was probably, I would say, I'm guessing November is when I saw the first stage of it, and then soon as spring.
All right, well, November would be back to Pike.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It started then, and then I saw a second round of it with different, a different source, doing it with the Crane Hogan people on there, and then about all the environmental stuff. And that's something that's very confusing to me is that I believe the problem started being masked, and they realized that they were unable to be successful on that. Then, when they started doing the water test after they had dug everything in on there, that I saw this process go on, but it was 3 times as long as the first process.
Oh, okay.
That's my question would be is that knowing that area and stuff down there with all this water being pumped in and out, basically, were they doing this until they got the levels where they wanted them to be to do their testing, and then once they started,
Yeah, it's hard to say. But the gentleman brings up something very important. The reason why I visited too often is I try to continue to take pictures about what's going on, and I listen to the people that go by it as well. If you see something strange, use that camera that you got on your phone, take a few pictures. Always get something and get a hold of one of us and write down what you saw. And we'll ask Mr. Greger what's going on. We'll ask other people in the city, maybe DEC. But if we don't know what happened, you can't do much about it. Yes, Sue?
I remember reading way back, I read a lot of the reports that you were talking about, and my question, I believe, was in the Aldrich report, that the city of Rochester and the DEC had an arrangement where contaminated soil that was below a certain threshold could be redistributed within the construction site.
My question is about one of the reports that's on the city website. It was one of the DeBella tests or reports that was published, and I believe it was from the Aldrich company that did the testing.
Sure.
But one of the things I remembered reading was that the city of Rochester and the DEC had made an arrangement where contaminated soil that was below a certain threshold was able to be redistributed within the construction site. And I wondered if you remembered that. or could speak to that.
I'm not sure I can remember seeing exactly where that was. I do remember seeing something to that tune. The problem here is that they don't have enough room to redistribute soil. I finally had a chance to use some of that math from St. John Fisher to try and come up with a real simple answer in terms of cubic yards of material that has to be dug out of the Marina section alone. And I believe, if I have my notes right, my mind right, is was something like 82,000 cubic yards of material has to be removed. So you can't move it somewhere in the site because you also have to dig foundations for those other buildings. And in a lot of cases, when you dig the foundations for the other buildings, you have to remove all of that soil as well because it's contaminated and you can't leave it around your foundation. Questions? Let's see, I want to make sure I got somebody. The gentleman over in the corner there with glasses. Right, oh, excuse me, okay, the lady in front, okay.
Who needs this?
I'm floating around with these mics.
Hi, my name is Fern Hilsinger. I have lived in this area for pretty close to 60 years. I've grown up here, I've spent my entire life here, I still live in the family home. And I can tell you, I want to go back to this guy back here who's talking about the effects of Lake Avenue.
Sure.
I live by the high school. Let me tell you about the effects of my house. My house is tilting, the doors don't fit. I now have groundwater that's bubbling up out of my yard, and I have a very, very large area, almost an acre. It seems to be the effects of liquefaction that apparently you're describing. All the things you've talked about seem to be happening at my house, and I have neighbors here that the same thing has happened. Given that, my question and ours back here are, if we're feeling these effects up there, we have water which obviously transmits and moves waves and vibration. Is Irondequoit not also affected by this very same thing that we are on this side?
Yes, we are.
I don't know the answer. Do you know the answer to that, Dr. Young, whether they're...
And of course, Somerville also.
Sure. Well, I know Somerville.
It's not quite as bad on the east side of Irondequoit Bay because there are higher bluffs there, and so when the lake rose, it was up against a steep face, whereas when the lake rose up the Genesee Valley, it was filling in that old gorge that was eroded. So it's a little bit different on the east side than it is on the west side.
It would seem to me that the owners of those very large mansion-like buildings that are sitting up there, those owners should be a little bit worried if there's vibration that might be causing them issues. And maybe we should be considering engaging them in our plight.
Right, but most of the soils on that side are what I mentioned, the really compact glacial tills, and you could see that like in places like Chimney Bluffs, which is quite a bit further east. But it's similar to that, where it's a little bit more compact than it is here.
Thank you.
The lady in the, I want to say orange in the back there along the wall. Yeah, take the mic so we make sure we hear everything.
I've been following this for quite a while, and thank you, and I can appreciate, I don't live in the area, but I've been a part of the Rochester community, and I've been a part of the construction community. I would just say, by some of the numbers that I've heard here and some of the comments about the current contractor, I attempted to approach the city of Rochester through FOIL 9 months ago to help your cause and obtain some of the financial information on some of the bids and change orders over the last 10 years with this contractor. 9 months later, I still don't have the information, but I do have a letter. Apparently, I'm very special, that before they'll process my FOIL request, I have to make a $5,000 deposit. I have to say things in my opinion, because I am now being sued by the contractor for defamation of character, because when you made mention of the issue at the Susquehanna River, it wasn't water that was pumped in there.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, based on the articles that I've read, it was concrete slurry from a parking garage.
That's correct.
Okay, when I heard one of the gentlemen ask when they said there will be no change orders, is that in the contract? It is not in the contract documents because I had the contract documents and I read them very thoroughly, and the city of Rochester cannot make that type of commitment. I also want to make mention that it's not just the city of Rochester. Very similarly with the Stutson Street Bridge and the O'Rourke Bridge, it was Monroe County, it was New York State DOT, and the contractor. So there were many hands in the decision-making of the egregious change order, in my opinion, the egregious change orders. So what I would suggest as a taxpayer of Monroe County and a lifelong resident as well as a contractor, that although these numbers are staggering, I would clarify or make attempts to clarify the actual validity of the dollar amounts that were actually required and the amount of projects that seem to follow particular contractors with change orders.
Sure.
Just my opinion.
Ma'am, are you a contractor?
Yes, sir, I am.
And what kind of business?
General construction, concrete, structural engineering.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Good luck.
Yep, one second. I had a thought in regards to that. In working around the scuttlebutt in the industry, what this lady was saying is quite true. I can't verify it one way or the other, but you know, talk to people again, find out. Yes, sir. Do you have a question?
Yeah. Specifically a question, but I want to address a couple of things. I'm really thankful for all the young Dr. Young, I still have your river model somewhere.
We got a mic right there.
I've got a loud voice.
We need it for everybody.
I'll talk really loud.
Go ahead.
I have Dr. Young's river model, and Dr. Young, thank you so much. That model exists somewhere. It's a beautiful model. I'm so happy to see the good people, the concerns, your good work, Bill, Dr. Young's work. This is a magnificent, wonderful, special, magical place, this community. It's got a lot of caring citizens. People can work together, get the right things done. I've been doing things here for over 60-some years. I'm 72 now. Anything I've done is on YouTube, so you can Google Voice on YouTube. But the main thing I wanted to say right now, and Dr. Young, your river model is just beautiful. That model of the Genesee River Valley that Dr. Young donated to us. It traveled to various venues. The Museum and Science Center wanted to keep it. They liked it so much. And now it's kind of gotten lost. But I would like to donate that to the Community Association, Charlotte.
Sure.
It should be a permanent, it's 18 feet long. Well, it should be here.
Right.
And I think it would be an inspiration and a help. And Dr. Young, maybe you can speak a little bit about, that's just a gorgeous model, that 18-foot long river model that you and others did. And so I just wanted to thank you both for your good work, Dr. Young for your good work, everybody. I think the right things can happen. I'm happy that we're going through this process. And here's Kay, and Kay lives in the house I used to live in on Beach Avenue many years.
All right, we are just about at 9 o'clock, and people are getting a little itchy. I understand, it's a long time to sit. We have one gentleman that I need to ask or let him speak his mind. He's helped me a lot in regards to the Evan Dawson interview that I did yesterday. He was a great asset to be there as well. And he's been really, really involved with this whole project as well. Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Bill. I have a question for Dr. Young, but I first wanted to say this. If we had ideal subsurface conditions, I would still hope that we all, as a group, might think of what Charlotte Strong has stood for since it formed last year, which is the idea of going back to the drawing board, so that in this unique place we call Charlotte, we might obtain the highest and the best uses that serve the public the best in this area. And I'd like us to be mindful of that being the objective, if possible. A couple of quick things about the marina. It will be publicly owned, as at least I believe, and it constitutes 4 acres of land that's lost surface area for that one dedicated purpose, which is for about 85 boats, 85 slips, in the first phase of its construction. And the marina will be taxpayer funded, and it will cost, as estimated, $20 million. When you divide 20 million by 85, you determine that the cost of constructing one boat slip is $234,000. It's a lot of money. It's a very long payback. It's something for us all to think about, even if the marina is underway.
I'll say.
The question I have for Dr. Young is this. Will the ferry terminal building, given that it will likely be surrounded by water on 3 sides, have particular risks that you could either put our minds to rest about or tell us about?
Yeah, I have the same questions. I don't know much about the foundation, but it's over the deepest part of the worst kind of sediment. And I'm surprised that certain problems haven't already been noticed, whether there are cracks in the foundation. I've only been in there once, and I would think there would be some concern. I thought maybe that's one of the reasons Pike got a little antsy about working so close to that building, but I really don't know. And I don't know that they put the foundations down to bedrock, but 100-foot piers for foundation work is kind of unusual. So that's a good question that needs to be followed up if anyone knows more about the foundation of those new buildings.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so that I don't tire everyone out here. I'm probably pretty tired myself at this point in time. A lot of preparation for today. Let's end the questioning at this point in time. If you still have questions, I'll be around to try to answer them. I'm sure Dr. Young will be here for a little bit longer at least. We'll be glad to talk with you. We thank you so much. When you put something like this together, you just never know. Are we going to get 5 people, 10 people, or 100 people? It was very, very pleasing to see all of you here. And I want to make sure that it doesn't end here. Like I said, we do not serve City Council. They serve us. And if we don't speak out at City Council meetings, if we don't send emails to these folks, and they read the emails. I do get some response from you guys. Not a lot, but if they keep on getting emails from you with good questions, and it's all about if you ask an intelligent question, it's hard for them to not answer it. A lot of times they probably don't know the answer because they're trusting other people. Remember that one of my lines here, you can't trust everything to other people. Never. All right? Always ask and always push. And that's what this whole project is about. If we want to change the direction, and I think there's a lot of reasons why we should, before some serious accident could happen. All right? Janice, come here, Janice. I talked Janice into taking a big picture of a building on its side from Shanghai, all right, to City Council, saying this could happen here. That building fell over on its side, fortunately, before anybody had any opportunity to start inhabiting it, all right? But it was one of the worst erosion disasters, I guess, online, to top 1 or top 10 or something like that. So these things can happen, and we can't ignore that. And I'm not sure the city really has a true appreciation for it, because they don't know. They really don't know about the lake levels and how they've affected the history of this river and so on. They referred to one article in regards to all their geology information online. The engineers did, so they don't know.